are live. I have a fantastic guest on the show. We're going to be really pushing the no on 22 issue before November. Today we are pleased to have Robin Hood join us again and talk to us about one of the topics, no on Proposition 22. Should be talking about more. Why do voters and riders trust Uber and Lyft enough to vote for their self-written Proposition 22? As a driver for 3 years and a rider for over 5 years, Mike has experienced firsthand many of Uber and Lyft's bait and switch dirty tricks, and he has read about the fines and judgments that either Uber or Lyft and Instacart have been found guilty of over the past 5 years. He feels all no on Prop 22 supporters should be talking about this more too. And he wants to share the actual stories and information he has used to help influence voters he has talked to with changing their vote to no on 22. He urges other drivers to do the same thing. He thinks it has been effective and more relatable for non-ride share voters. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Great, Torsten. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Welcome. I'm welcoming my subscribers. Please feel free to chime in and participate. So, we've had you on the show before, but can you just give us a quick background for those listening to you for the first time, when you drove and where most of the information, data, and stories you use come from?
Sure, Torsten. So I started riding Uber just like everybody else as a guy going to airports and going home from bars, say back in 2014. And then because of some things that happened in my life, I had a chance to become a driver in 2016. And I probably drove for both Uber and Lyft up until like middle of 2019.
Okay.
And during that time, I also was invited, I don't know how, just out of luck, I was one of the higher rated drivers, so I got to go participate in the 180 days of change in those Uber meetings.
Oh, yeah.
I also was in, so I was in that, and I also met with some of the Uber managers on some of the things they did. So I got to meet some of their managers, and then also on the Lyft side, Brad, who you've also had on the show before, I helped him with these Lyft meetup meetings where we would meet, I'd say, over the span of a year and a half with new Lyft drivers to help them get started, and then also met with a lot of other veteran drivers. So a lot of my information and opinions come from those 3 years of driving. And then during the time, I've been very interested in the industry, so I've read almost every article written during the time, much like you, and I follow YouTubers like you guys. So that's where my information comes from. And then the last thing, the reason I kind of stepped out is because I heard some myths and stories out there that, even though people were saying you're misclassified, maybe that even though we were exploited, it was all just a myth. There's nothing you could do. And then I was successful in attorneys being one of the drivers who's actually been paid by both Uber and Lyft. Oh, you've actually been
paid, yeah. Okay, good.
Yes, I've been paid by both Uber and Lyft. And that was for, they say officially, because I signed an NDA, it's settled, but that's for, they owe us all money.
Cool.
So
and I will respect the fact that you have a non-disclosure agreement and cannot talk about that. But I always smile when somebody receives money, right? Because when those evildoers have to pay out, that is a great day for drivers, and I'm excited to get my big payday. We're right now in negotiations as well. So
you had, and just one last thing on that, you had attorneys on, and I've talked to not only my attorney who represented me and others, but there are thousands out there just waiting for their stuff. So luckily we're talking not the hundreds of thousands, we're going to be talking tens of thousands and then hundreds of thousands, which will eventually get paid.
Yeah, I had, just slightly off topic, but I had a very interesting question to that panel. Remember, I had those 3 heavy hitter attorneys from San Francisco who were making the arguments no on 22. And then I had one guy chime in during the live stream, well, why don't you interview any attorney that's yes on 22? Well, I tell you what, there isn't an attorney that'll argue yes on 22 because there's no money to be made for them, right? And there's nothing to represent there, right? I mean, why would an attorney make a case for a bogus story? I mean, it's basically paid for by Uber and Lyft. So, I quickly shut that down. You're not going to find a yes on 22 attorney, period. There is no one out there.
Except for their in-house counsel, of which all those companies have tons of attorneys.
Yeah, of course. And I want to give Randall Heimovicki a shout out, one of the in-house attorneys that I've also attached as a defendant, right? I look forward collecting from you, Mr. Randall Heimovicki. So next question. Why do you think trust is a worthwhile topic for No on 22 supporters and campaign advocates to even bring up these last 14 days? I mean, I think that's a very legit question, right?
Yes. Well, so for those of us that are a little older and have been through a lot of elections, especially here in California, my personal view is that when people vote on propositions, they usually start off by going, okay, number one, how's it going to cost me money-wise? Bonds, things like that. People go, all right, it's going to cost me money or am I going to benefit it? So that's number one. Number two, people go to, okay, anybody in my family, my neighborhood, my community, my friends, how's it affecting them? So in this case, there are plenty of people that know drivers and those that's been out there campaigning and tell their family and friends, vote for me. Yeah, they'll vote. But the third one I've always felt, especially with other friends I know, is like, okay, they want to know, they basically question, do I trust the intention of this proposition? And ever since I saw the proposition, I've always been telling people the easiest way to look at it, just from logic, without knowing either side, is, okay, the Proposition 22. It was initiated basically by Uber, Lyft, Postmates, DoorDash, all those guys. Okay, so what is it for? It's so there will be a third way of being able to call people independent contractors. Right. And I go, so my point is here is that when people look and say, okay, and if you go look at all the propositions, I won't bore your listeners with it, but when you go through all the different numbers, the first thing you go is, okay, how is that going to affect me? Okay, now who wrote this and where's that? And how do I trust? And then you'll see the yes and no, right? We'll read it. Well, almost everything here is, you got to think about it. How can we trust Uber? And the reason I bring it up for our side, No on 22, is we've got countless articles on all the scandals, all the different things Uber's had, and I think the media, of course, they're not reporting on it. And then because they're not, and then we've had a divisiveness between drivers, right, or so says Uber. So many drivers say they want yes, and then we don't meet them, right? But the point is so we have to just go back to trust. And then what I say is when I talk to other people who are in the non-rideshare industry, they don't really ride, they don't drive, they don't sell to it. They basically come down to it. I just ask them questions, and then they say, where's that information from? Go look it up here. And then, so what I'm saying is I think we've kind of spent so much time on the other issues, and they're all doing great things. The guy that I really respect a lot is Edward Escobar.
Yeah, Edward's a hardcore. I love him.
Yeah, he's been on your guest, and he just did a great editorial a while back, and his message has been for over 5 years. Wake up, not only workers, but public and community. What's happening here with this company, they're getting stronger, they're making money, and they're driving everybody into poverty. And it's not about, to the non-rideshare. It's not about everybody wanting unions. It's not about everybody wanting to just say, oh, we need someone to feel like we're victims, feel sorry for us. Edward's always been saying, look, we need to unite, drivers unite. We need to show people who we are, how many there are of us, and this could happen to you guys too. So I just want to come back and say, like with guys like Edward, is he's saying all the right things, but the problem is we're not going right back on Uber, and that's what I wanted to do. Just remind everybody who Uber and Lyft and what they've done over the span, and I'm only going back, a lot of things I'll talk to you about, back to like 2014 with most of my stuff. Right. But I would say they are the lead person for this, and this Prop 22 does not get done without Uber. So that's the reason I think we should be talking about trust. I'll get more into specifics.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a massive word, trust, right? So when did you start losing trust in Uber and Lyft? And I'll briefly tell you where I lost the trust. And I hear it from hundreds and hundreds of people in the channel. How can you trust? And trust is a big word. So when did you actually start losing trust?
So when I went in, I wasn't going in with rose-colored glasses. I'd read about Gray Ball and GodView and how Uber was stealing Lyft and all that. I said, hey, that's what tech companies do, and I get all that, right? So then I started driving, and I will be like most critics will say, hey, well, you went in and you volunteered to drive, so you accepted their terms and conditions. When I went in 2016, I actually started with that exchange lease program because I wasn't going to run my car into the ground.
Right.
But I looked at it, I did all the numbers by it, and I said, wow, I'm going to get a car. It's going to be $140 a week. I'm going to do this, and I could do whatever I want with it. Okay, signed up for it. I looked at what they were paying, and then I had one advantage over others because I had an HR background. I knew I was going to get paid for all my mileage later because I knew it was an independent contractor. I knew based on previous cases, I would always get that 50 cents later, right? So my point was, I thought it was enough money at the time, and there was lots of surges, everything else. So I'll just say that when I first came, it was great. When I lost my trust was right in 2017. Other drivers and I, we'd meet, every now and then, and there'd be these meetings. We'd talk and go, "Hey, have you noticed that the pay's a little less?" Somebody goes, "Yeah, I've been looking at the receipts from the passengers versus mine. They're not the same." And even here in Southern California, we started to see that both Lyft and Uber weren't paying us our 75 or 80%, depending on when you started, right? And then it happened in 2017. They got found guilty in New York of stealing tens of millions of drivers from the New York drivers, right? They were doing this too. They were never guilty. And they found them that they were on purpose going against their terms and conditions, right?
Yeah.
So when that happened, you know what they did, Torsten? They then put the stupid, we're going to do prepaid, and we all had to sign on that we no longer were going to be guaranteed our 75 or 80%.
Right.
We were going to take whatever they gave us. And when they did that, and we had no other choice but to quit, I said, I'm no longer trusting them. I can't trust them anymore.
100%. And I remember those times well. That switch came in 2017. Prior to that, when you were on the 75-25 split, people were making some decent money. I was doing extremely well, driving in an SUV in black category, making $3,000 a week on Uber, a little bit extra on Lyft, and then driving as a private driver. Those were great weeks. 4.5, $5,000 a week. I was smiling. But as they started chipping off, as they started manipulating the algorithms, as the stories started coming out in the media about Travis and then about Dara, time and time again, it truly was never a positive story. And, over and over and over again, they lost your trust. It's just like if you have a boyfriend and girlfriend in a relationship, he runs off, cheats on his girlfriend. She finds out through her friend. Do you honestly think she's going to trust? No, she's going to move on, right? So a lot of people lost their trust, moved on like you. 2019 was a big trust breaker for me. Probably recruited in and around 8,000 drivers for Uber and Lyft. Was doing very, very well on the referrals. Was actually called the referral king. Making anywhere sometimes 20 to 40 a month. And then they changed the terms of conditions in 2019 and literally wiped out about $600,000 of my referrals, just wiped them out, which were grandfathered in, which were legit city referrals, just wiped them out. And that's when I'd lost all trust and literally went to war with these guys. That's it, and it's like game on. Okay, is this if this is how dirty, if this is how low you want to stoop, and then they even went lower this year with this whole not abiding by AB5, spitting at the law, at the current law which is in place. And then using all this hard-earned money that drivers are bringing in to build up a $200 million war chest to screw their own people over again. So, you can't talk about trust anymore. And anyone that's going in there voting, yes on 22, you're basically too weak to acknowledge what happened in the past, in the history, and you like to be punished over and over and over again. It's almost like self-sabotage, punish me again. At some point in life, Mike, you got to learn, right? You got to learn. You cannot trust, and you have to move away. right? Or you have to make it better. You have to push for something better. Now,
Torsten, if I can add to that real quick. So what I also wanted, because we're in 2017, right? And I'll bring back memories of everybody who watches this video. 2017 was also when we found out that Uber, literally the year before, had a data breach. They paid off a guy $100K. 57 million of us had our data hacked in, right?
Yes.
And then they didn't tell anybody. It took someone else to find out. Then they paid $148 million fine. Again, nothing to us. Again, I'm just going to tell you things that happened in 2017.
Yes.
And then Susan Fowler told about the Me Too thing that everybody was reading about, right?
Yeah.
How Uber was basically treating all of its women and
sexual harassment, etc. Yeah,
Travis had his Uber thing, and they were going to escort things. This came out in 2017 too. And then here's the other biggie one for us. In 2017, they finally got popped by the FTC for what you and I know we always do. They were false advertising what drivers would make in New York and LA. They kept saying, you're going to make 80 or 90 grand. You're going to do this. The rental programs are good for you. Well, the DOJ looked into it. The FTC looked into it. And in 2017, it wasn't just us that said that. They were fined $20 million. Lyft settled out of court.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, just then, while we were getting all this, now I still drove. Other people still drove because we said, all right, now we know what Uber and Lyft is like. So now we basically, we're going to have to figure out how to make this work. But what I'm telling you is, we all knew then. Everybody I knew, everybody driving is, this is basically someone you can't trust. We are going to treat ourselves like independent contractors, and we're going to do the best we can. But we know we're going to have to sue them later.
Yeah. So and thank you for clarifying that. So were you the only driver that you knew that felt this way? If not, why do you think these dirty tricks and bait and switch tactics were so tolerated and never changed until later?
Well, no, there were a bunch of guys. And so what happened here is, thanks to guys like you and Uberman, Rideshare Guy, and then there were these really cool other little small groups. Like there's this guy named Johnny in Newport Beach. He had a Facebook group, and he'd have people come, and he'd share things, and everybody figure out, okay, here's how you get around this. You don't wait over at the airport like this. And then we'd have groups, coffee groups. You'd sit there and go, okay, you know what, guys? Like, we had a simple trick. By this time, Lyft was basically having us pick up everything, go-go grandparents, to grocery stores, to cars, and then, of course, with schools. Who never got stuck with unaccompanied minors, right? So my point is, we get together in groups, and people would go, well, how do we fix it? We go, here's what you do. You don't pay attention to those. You know the addresses. You don't pick them up because you won't make money. You have to let them all go. Yeah. Everybody found ways, knowing Uber and Lyft were the opponents. You had to find ways around them. And so what happened is, even though we had to do the dirty tricks, the bait switch, we dealt with it, right? But here's the problem is, who didn't know this whole time, and the people we need to tell now, I've had a lot of success talking to voters now, is the riders didn't know what was going on. For instance, Torsten, I'll try to make it as short as I can, but when I talk to people, I go, remember when all of us started were the riders and passengers back in 2014, 2015, any one of them. We basically got into a car with a driver who talked like us, looked like us, had a clean car, right? So we felt good about that. Then we got an app, which basically was easy pay and everything, right? And then we could see where this happened. It was a great premium service. And then what they did is, Uber and Lyft together, then they kept paying less, they kept driving drivers away and everything, and they've in essence made what was a great service, a premium service, even though they undercharged for it, right? They kept giving discounts and charging nothing, right? So what they've done is they took this great service that everybody had to transfer trust, me as a rider. I'd get a nice car, I'd get all these good things. And then they said, let's get rid of all the good drivers who used to pay a lot, and let's bring in the people that'll work for less. Let's bring in all the Walmart and McDonald's and anybody else that'll come in, and we'll start them off. And then basically the passengers, now the public, didn't understand why they were getting a little older car, why they were getting many people that didn't speak English, right?
Yeah. Not
that they don't deserve to work there and everything, but the point was, these people built the business on the backs of the drivers, I say, from 2012 to 2016, 17, right? And then they went ahead and said, all right, now that we've got all these people here, we're going to do things to the drivers the riders will never talk about. Like, even today, you'd be surprised how many people I say, you realize that we didn't know the destinations until recently, right? They go, what? Yeah, San Clemente, I'll pick you up. I have to take you to LES. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, you didn't? You realize that they used to do pool for all the Uber drivers. They'd have to go in, they'd be on pool. I had another buddy, his name was Keith. He had a Prius tour. They put 3 people. They didn't restrict luggage, right? So they just would do this. So I'm telling you, the other part of this is the riders ended up saying, you know what? It really, they changed the whole service and they made it worse for them, and they didn't understand why. And then they just took it out on drivers.
Right.
So I know I'm getting a little off the subject, but what I'm trying to say is that I think we have to tell the people that are riders, hey, you know what? There's a lot about what Uber and Lyft did to us that now they're going to basically get a get out of jail free to keep doing that forever, and your service will be less and less. And then we need to tell all the people who never took it, you know what? We signed up and it was a great service, but these Uber and Lyft guys think they're going to be another Amazon, another Walmart, and they're going to just basically exploit workers. So you need to vote no.
Right. But you know what worries me a bit, if you look at their campaign, they're pushing these text messages through to riders on the app saying, your fares will go up. It'll get really expensive if you don't vote yes on 22. Like complete fear marketing, which is an easy one for a rider to back, because they don't want they've always had the very, very best low rates. They don't want the rates to go up. So, I mean, it's a tough sale. If a driver takes the time and educates a rider inside the car, that's a good one, but we really need to connect with those riders as well and make them understand our world, because it's basically from our world, from the driver world, that's always been, they've always taken away. The riders, they've always cozied up to, they've never, ever tried to harm that side. Even if I look at these current prompters in the app, when you're setting your multiplier in California to 3x or 5x, and they say, this riders may not like this. Are you sure you don't want to choose 1x, right? Encouraging you to offer super low rates, right, in order not to antagonize or piss off the rider. So for the rider, it's their campaign, I think, to the riders, a pretty easy one, scaring them with high rates. It's our duty to educate the rider about the driver world. Now, another question I'd written down here, why do you think riders and public officials ignored all of these events and warning signs?
Well, I think some of them are pretty obvious. We people don't like to admit it, but, selfishly, a lot of people just want the cheap ride, because what I'm trying to tell you is those of us that rode Uber early, and I even consider 2014, 2015 early, right? We were treated so well. We were offered water. There was so much money in it. The cars were great. The music was great. The drive, everything. It was a great experience, right?
I agree.
So if you compare the experience now to what it was now, it's almost like a limo versus, like a town car, right? But I'm just saying is the riders now, especially new, and the drivers that are new, they don't know what it used to be like. So I think the problem is now is they're just saying, the riders are saying, hey, it's cheap, I want to keep it cheap, and if this keeps it cheap, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the public doesn't know exactly what's going on behind closed doors. But here's the worst part is the public officials who are to blame for this all the way from the beginning, they basically have felt Uber and Lyft are too big to fail. And it's helped their political careers. It's helped their money. I don't want to get too political here, but when Tony West is related to Kamala Harris and her niece, and they all end up being executives, and then there's just stories like that all over, where the people that are in Uber and Lyft, they have, even the guy who was the CEO of Lyft for a couple of years for 1 year actually, when they went public, John McNeil came from Tesla. They all just live there, and there's so much money and so much stuff. I think that the public just says, you know what, they're too big, we can't do anything. And it wasn't until, Becerra decided, all right, I'm going to get on board and do something about it, right?
Yeah.
He's the first one that really did it. So I think that was it. And then there were the YouTubers like you, and then there are guys like Edward that fought against it. But let's face that, there weren't enough.
Yeah.
Just weren't enough.
It's and not to get off topic, but when you talk about YouTubers or influencers, whatever you want to call them, I mean, there's tons of channels out there that range, from 500 subscribers to 100,000 subscribers. The bottom line is, I have, and not to mention names in this one because I've called them out before, but I've seen a lot of flip-flopping. I've seen people promote no on 22, and then for some odd reason, they started really, really pushing yes, and I question that when you have these double standards. Why were you all in on no on 22, making all the arguments, and suddenly somewhere, and the weird thing is, it sort of happened at the same time, 3 or 4 names, even big names, switched and started promoting yes on 22. Now, the next question, why do you think the media has not been harder on Uber and Lyft when all of these items you've talked about are pretty scandalous and unethical, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer your last comment first. So one thing is, I'm like you, there's 2 ways it could be on those people that have switched their minds. One is they literally could have had someone pressure them or give them some money, which I know a lot of people are saying. But there's the other one too, which in politics is, you get on the record before you lose, so you're on the right side. I just want to let you know, a lot of people have been seeing yes and think yes is going to win. So I think some of the guys out there, they want to be good. They want to be good with Uber and all those guys when yes comes on, and they don't want to get pounded, right? Like a guy like you don't care. You've always been there for the workers, the drivers, everything else. So if yes wins, and they want to do anything to you, you don't care. But I would tell you, as much as I respect Rideshare Guy Harry, and I respect Jay Kredier, and I respect some of these other guys, like this guy in Atlanta who thinks he knows the Bentley Coupe or whatever, thinks he's going to tell everybody that he knows about California. And yes, the 22. I'm going like, well, no, I'm just hoping he's saying he wants to do a deposit and be good when it wins, so that DoorDash will be nice to him.
Yeah, he's a big DoorDasher in a completely different state. So that to me truly, if anything, sounds like somebody received money on his 50,000 subscribers to push this message. I mean, there's a transaction involved in that one. There's no reason for someone in Atlanta backing DoorDash all the way with such a big base to come out against California. It has nothing to do with your state. If anything, the people in California are actually fighting for the other states. It's the other way around. We're fighting for Texas, we're fighting for Florida, we're fighting for New York, we're fighting for Colorado, we're fighting for New Jersey, right? Because, you should be earning more money. You shouldn't be going backwards. Now, most of the Uber and Lyft tricks and illegal activities were years ago. So why do you think these are relevant to the Proposition 22 vote discussion right now?
Because, so a couple things. For one thing, people need to know how powerful Uber is and what they're willing to do to get this passed. They bullied in the past. One of their executives actually was quoted once as saying, hey, we're just going to bully the reporters, and why don't we get their information? And then just recently, Dina Duval, which is this lawyer, a big no on 22, they released her address. They harassed the heck out of her. They scare people from reporting on it.
Right.
So I say that the problem has been that it's both. It's that the media, number one, I think they don't think it gets clicked. You go out there and say, hey, we've got basically 500,000 drivers out there. They're going to make a little less. They're not going to get employee benefits. Okay, we've said enough about it. Why should we report more? That's part of it. But the other part is they don't want to go out against this huge tech. And all these guys, the investors are invested in all the different businesses, right? So if you piss off somebody who's an investor in Uber or Lyft or Postmates, they're probably an investor in Apple. They're probably an investor in the next thing coming. So I think the media watches themselves. I mean, there's some out there. There's a guy named Josh Harnett. He does a podcast on it. I don't want to say everybody, but they're really not making the efforts. I mean, I just sit there and say, the reason I wanted to bring them up now is Prop 22 is here. We know from our angle that no on Prop 22 means we want independent contractors, but if you're going to do it under your rules, Uber and Lyft, you have to treat them like employees, right? So there should be both. And if there's going to be a third way, it should be there will be real, by law, independent contractors, and there'll be employees. And that's what we're saying. Uber and Lyft are saying, no, we're just going to do our own third way where basically we'll decide what they are and we'll treat them any way we are. And guess what, everybody? Here's a bunch of ads, 200 million will buy. And guess what, everybody? You're going to keep having cheap rides. And then that way we can get around the law.
Right.
So I say, let's forget who's right or wrong. Listen, you can't trust Uber. That's my point. You can't trust somebody who from the beginning has been cheating drivers, cheating riders. We didn't even talk about this part, but the sexual assault. I don't blame Uber for that poor young lady who died in New Jersey going in the wrong thing. And I definitely think it's rude for people to say, oh, you can't do anything because you went in the wrong one. No, you and I know, Torsten, those of us that drove, it was always unsafe the way they did it. They should have always had it. So you had to have Uber or Lyft in your car, and there should have been something to match they knew young women at night were going home drunk. I drove tons, so did you. And they're lucky they had us so that nothing ever happened to them.
Yeah.
So that alone should be by the media saying, what is Uber and Lyft doing about that? Now, I can tell you, if you're an employee, and this is one of my strongest points I tell people is, when you're an employee, you're a full-time driver. And say you got insurance, and say it's only a minimum wage guarantee, but with surges and everything else, you're going to make some money. You're much more likely to not do anything to a passenger, right? You're going to do everything by the book, as opposed to someone who jumps on an app, right, or pretends to jump on an app. You want full-time employees. Your product will be better. Your service will be better. People will feel safer. There's more risk on the full-timer to do anything wrong. You know what I mean? These things, I really think people that drive at night, there's all kinds of things that should be done. More drivers have driven more than me. But what they do now, you and I both know, you could get an Uber or Lyft amp or sticker and it quit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Someone could get in your car, you could have already quit.
If we can also maybe do a topic at the end of the week or early next week about this specific point here, and there's so much confusion and misunderstanding, right? When you break it down dollar for dollar, right, what you're earning right now during pandemic times with the multiplier, right? And you and I know the multiplier was a legal counter to AB5 trying to make an argument that, hey, our drivers are independent. Look, they can set their own rates. They can decline trips. The multiplier had never been around in 2019. The multiplier is not available in New Mexico, Nevada, or in any other state. It's only here in California, and it was a counter to AB5, right? And right now, I get a lot of screenshots. From drivers that say, why are you trying to change things? We're actually making some money now. Well, big wake-up call here, drivers in California, sign of the times, right? Firstly, you're one of about 30% that's back out there in the workforce. The other 70% are still collecting unemployment, etc., playing it safe. They're not out there. So you're in a pond getting a lot of trips, right? You're setting your rates. People are setting them up to 5x. I made a video on a guy that did a entire shift past Saturday on 5x and made $816. Come November, if they get a yes on 22 vote, that multiplier is gone. It's gone, right? Because they don't have to make the argument against AB5, right? They don't want to piss off the rider with you setting higher rates. It's gone. So I tell those drivers, milk it while you can, right up to November, and then look at your earnings if you go the yes on 22 route. You are going so far backwards. They've openly discussed this. Uber said 30 cents per mile and 120% of minimum wage only if you have a rider actively on a trip in your car. When you do the math, you are going so far backwards. So these people can't come out and cry and moan when they're suddenly making half their earnings November, whatever, January, when this kicks in, if they get the yes on 22. It's like a business deal. You got to negotiate with these companies and sort of pretend that you are a Javier Becerra, right? And load the chips on this side and push for a no. Because once you have the no, you can push for better rates and better terms and better conditions and move people towards true independent contractorship, right? But to quickly sell out because you bought into the $200 million war machine, you've already surrendered. You've given up, and you've given up to earnings that could potentially, go 20, 30 in the positive direction versus 40% in the negative direction. So I think that's it's a big topic that we need to talk about and set the record straight on that. If we
I have a couple other guys. There's a couple other ones we could do. Be glad to come on. I just want to kind of wrap up with just a few quick things here. Number one is, again, the reason I want to bring trust out is because if you really want to get to where I think voters are, you just basically have to say, did you know? You asked someone about 22. Did you know that the reason they're doing this is because the California Supreme Court, basically said that the way they're doing it is illegal. And then there's a law that now, because of the law, like you said, they're not doing some of it. But if they get this passed, they don't have to do any of it. So
exactly.
then we say, did you know? Did you know they put $200 million in this? If they're putting $200 million in this, there's something funky about it.
Yep.
And then the other one is, did you know that they literally aren't paying taxes? By the time they're not paying the payroll taxes for years now, it's over like $2 billion. And the unemployment alone is over $400 million. Why should they not have to pay in every other business?
Yeah, why should California have to bail them out each time? Why does California?
So I just tell people that's where the trust comes in. We have to get people that are voters, and then the problem has been Uber and Lyft. They've got so many PR people and so many people smarter than you and me that are going, hey, if we have all those guys know on 22 just basically out there talking about what they're already talking about, and then they're trying to convince them, they won't really talk about what people don't like about us. They won't talk about our scandals. They won't talk about how we cheated them, the riders. They won't talk about, hey, we lost in court already. They won't talk about, hey, we're not paying taxes. And that's what I'm saying. If you get to trust, people go, well, why should we trust Uber? And then, there's articles out there that say 49 Uber scandals. That's just Uber. And then I could probably do a whole nother program on Lyft, Scan, Express Drive, and all the stuff Lyft has done. So I'm just saying, the more, again, where I come from is we're a little different perspective. Edward Escobar is a leader for workers' rights. Gig Workers Rideshare Drivers United, they've done great jobs. The problem is that the voters aren't listening to them because they've been labeled by the media and by Yes. It's not their fault, but everybody else says, okay, we got their message, that doesn't resonate with us. We need to go where it resonates. How can you trust Uber? And then how can you trust Lyft to regulate themselves? They just haven't earned it.
Exactly. Cool. Well, awesome. So tomorrow we'll have another guest on the show, right? Who's with us tomorrow?
I think we're going to have Brad come in tomorrow, and he's going to talk, especially for drivers, maybe try to say, hey, this is what we think. There's a lot of good stuff out there on what you would make if if Yes wins, which we hope not to. But what you could make if it's going to be no. And then really what we're about is just getting things out from our perspective, giving the kind of information we see, and then allowing people to go look it up and talk about it.
Yes. Cool. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm going to jump in and talk to the subscribers. Feel free to mix it up. And we shall talk soon. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for your time, Jordan.
Thank you, buddy. So cool. Yeah, we're going to bring pretty much an episode per day. I welcome Timothy. I welcome Tris. I welcome Elias. I welcome Timothy. Got Edward Alliance, Edward Escobar in the house, who says media hated AB5 because the workers were heavily misclassified and they get ad dollars from gig corporations. Good point. Dan's in the house. He said, I'm registered to vote now for the first time since 2004. Fantastic. 16 years later, enough is enough. I love it. That gives you a lot of power, man, that you actually out there and you have, you can vote. You should feel good about that. Ivan's in the house. He says, I was excited when they said Lyft and Uber was going to cancel their service in California and other states. We all know that was the biggest bluff. They would never, ever leave their number one market. Rick Nelson says, Dan, you live in a very red state with two Democratic bubbles, Kansas City and St. Louis. All right. Good. How did that conversation play out between the two of you? We got Wicked Hustle Guy in the house. We gave his channel a shout out yesterday. He's come out with more videos. All I could say to the WHG, keep them coming. Keep on speaking the truth. Keep on using your humor. It's a strong card if you are doing videos, is to inject humor. People like that because topics can't just always be stiff and rigid and dry. Bring in that humor. I mean, I know on this channel we have a lot of laughs. There's a lot of funny stuff. that gets discussed here, from 80s music to, I mean, we go off topic quite often, and we have a lot of fun, and we should, right? You got to keep it real. You got to have some fun. Tris says now they are sending out mailer ads as well. Yeah, have you seen those? I got the pics. Thank you, Tris. Dave Chin, give me an elevator pitch on what I should tell family and friends that live in California. I think, Dave, if you followed today's live feed, I think there are tons of talking points, right? But I like your thinking is that you're going to get family and friends involved, right? So educate your close circles, and then educate your friends, and then reach out beyond those two circles. And you can use social media, your Facebook page. You can jump into Facebook groups, mix it up with voters. You can get on the phone if you want to join phone banks, contact Californians. You can create your Twitter account, tweet articles out there, retweet articles that you like, retweet strong selling points on No on 22. If you feel like, wow, this really resonated, okay, I'm going to retweet this. So there's so many ways to reach people, to reach Californians. I would also ask people beyond the borders of California to assist and help with No on 22. And the reason why I say that is because what we're doing here is we're fighting for better conditions for our brothers and sisters in neighboring states, right? This is not just, okay, this is all just about California. No, it's not. It's about our brothers and sisters right next door in Nevada, in New Mexico, in Utah, right? All across the US, fighting for better conditions. Don't allow them to push you around. Don't allow them to bully you around, right? Ivan T is in the house. Good. So please feel free to comment, questions, whatever you have. Giving my sponsors a brief shout out, and we're going to jump straight back into this topic here, right? And that is, the first one is Cova. Signed a contract with them for a few months to promote this gig protection plan that I believe in. I'm part of the gig protection plan. I have it myself. And, at $7 a month. And by the way, with this link beneath the video that I'm going to put in afterwards, you get 1 month free, right? You have your auto insurance. If you're driving Uber and Lyft and you have a private limo license, you obviously also have a commercial insurance. You have your health insurance or your medical insurance, might be Kaiser, might be Blue Shield, whatever it is. And then you need a gig protection plan. And God forbid you get kicked off the platform because of some wrongful report that a rider makes. At least Cova then communicates with their legal partner, which is Legal Rideshare, and they're based out of Chicago. They will fire off the letters to Uber and Lyft and say, hang on here, buddy, you wrongfully terminated my client, reinstate them, or ... right? Attorneys are very good at that. Legal Rideshare, why do I like them? Because they've truly branded themselves as the legal attorneys for injuries. God forbid you ever get hit by a truck or by a car, end up in the hospital, your car is totaled. Well, guess what? They will go after the damages. They will go after that other insurance. They will go after that other driver that hit you in the intersection. And I pray it never happens to you, right? But we hear these stories over and over and over again. Now, the Robin Hood group, the reason why they are one of a few groups that I'm really pushing in these last 22 days before the elections, before we decide on the Prop 22 vote, is because they're very passionate about this topic, as I am. And when you hear these guests on the show, whether it's No on 22 attorneys that I had the other day in California, whether it's the Robin Hood group, just be open. Just open your mind to other possibilities, other people's opinions, right? Versus the baby food that you're being fed by this $200 million propaganda machine, by Uber and Lyft. Just be open-minded and listen to both sides, and then come up with your decision how you will vote. Timothy says he uses Legal Shield. Yeah, I know of Legal Shield as well, right? But Legal Shield is more of a legal company that advises you, does wills, contracts, etc. Legal rideshare works a little bit differently. They specialize in injuries, right? Specifically in the rideshare or the gig industry. So there's similarities, but they're definitely not the same. Legal Shield is not legal rideshare. Legal rideshare ain't Legal Shield. They definitely operate very, very differently. Legal Shield is more like a company that will give you some advice and help you along. Legal rideshare, you're actually dealing with heavy hitter attorneys that go in for the money. Sure, they take a part of that battle, right? But they deserve it, right? They're filing all the papers, they're doing the subpoenas, they're doing the discoveries, they're doing the motions to compel, they're doing the requests for admissions, they're doing the interrogatories, blah, blah, blah. They're spending a lot of time chasing after your money. Legal Shield doesn't do that, right? Legal Shield doesn't file all that paperwork for you. Legal rideshare does. So Dan says, thanks, buddy. That's really, really nice. Numero uno to help drivers get any help you may need. There's no flip-flopping here. We're not going to deviate. There's no monies accepted from Uber or Lyft to talk the other way, to talk yes or no. Many people that have sued Uber and Lyft. The gentleman on this show actually got paid, and he got paid a lot of money by Uber and Lyft, right? He went after them, as I went after them, as Jay Crudeau went after them. Now, Jay Crudeau went after them and got paid by Uber and Lyft for misclassification, but then flip-flops and changes sides and promotes yes on 22. And his vote, yes on 22, would deny all of those drivers to file lawsuits and go after all the misclassification dollars. Now, if that's not hypocritical, if that's not taking like both sides, it's like saying, oh, you know what, I want two wives. I want the one wife because she cooks well and the other wife because she's hot. No, you have one wife. Right? Decide, make up your mind. You can't have it both ways. So Dan, thank you. Timothy, thank you. Sherelle's in the house. She says, sounds like a case for legal rideshare. Listen, if you have any case, if your car was in an accident, if you have any injury, tell them. I know them well. I'm going to actually have them on the show on Thursday. I'm going to have the legal rideshare attorneys out of Chicago on my show. And feel free to ask the questions. And when you contact them with a case, just say, hey, you know what? Rideshare professor sent me. They know me. They know me as Torsten Kunert, the rideshare professor. So I'd be grateful for that. Tim Olson says, I cannot access the link. Tim, you tell me which link you want, and then I'll put it out there. Did I post a link? I don't think I posted a link today, but I'll do that. You let me know which link it is, and I will put it out there. And thank you for bringing that up. Jimmy says Prop 22 discussions are getting brutal on some Facebook pages. Unbelievable how dirty it gets on Facebook. I had a I'm not going to mention any names, but I had a youngster this morning, and I could tell, oh, Flo, oh my gosh, thank you, Flo. He smacks down $50. I appreciate you. And by the way, Flo, just so that you know, I'm going to be sending out your masks today, and then I'm going to give another box on me to keep your wonderful kids safe. I'm going to send you 2 boxes, right? One you paid for, and the one is just from me as a gift, and I appreciate you. Thank you. And trust is a big one. Trust is a big word, Flo. To get the trust or build trust over years, if you're doing business with a company, right? Not just a one-hit wonder, one-off transaction, right? It's all these win-win type of scenarios that you try to create. Well, how do you create them? They come from trust, right? And I really, really ask drivers to dig deep, deep, deep in your soul and say, Can you trust Uber and Lyft based on historic behavior, right? And he says, listen to Dr. T and trust you only want one wife or husband. Exactly. So it's not worth jeopardizing a relationship or a marriage, or think you're going to do some shenanigans on the side. As Flo here correctly says, you want one wife or one husband, right? And that's it. And some people, you know, they got married young and it didn't work out, and you get a divorce, and then you have a second chance and you go out and you pick the right partner, right? So it's not like just because you're in a relationship that you have to stay in there forever. A lot of people stick in the relationship because of their children, right? But they're unhappy in the relationship. And so when we talk about relationships, think about your relationship with Uber and Lyft. How much trust is there still in 2020? How much do you truly, truly trust? You know, do you see them as an equal partner? Do you see them as a trustworthy partner, Uber and Lyft? I'll be honest, I don't, right? I don't. They, over and over and over and over again, they've shown me that they're willing to take from one side and not give, right? Just take. It's a take. It's not a give or take relationship. It's not bridge building. It's not relationship building. It is, what can I extract from the driver, right? How much water can I get out of this individual? How much money can I siphon out of this one individual? Timothy and Flo, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And a huge shout out, big hugs to your wonderful little kids. And what always warms my heart, every time around Christmas time, Flo sends me a video. It's like the video that I look forward to. And it's his little kids, him and his wonderful wife, they singing this these Christmas songs, and they send me one. And it's something I look forward to every year, Flo. You know, I appreciate you. Dan, thanks. And thank you. Thank you, everyone in the house. Thank you, everyone, for chiming in, participating. Thank you for the guest speaker. We'll do another one tomorrow. We'll do another one the next day, right up to big election day. You know, November the 3rd is just around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. How long? Maybe 2.5 weeks? It's creeping up on us fast and furious. I'm going to take a little break and thank you all. Blood's rushing into this leg, starting to swell up when you sit here for an hour. I'm going to sit down. My wife's in the kitchen cooking away. Laura says hi. She's waving. I'm going to sit down on the couch and put my foot up, you know, in that type of position. And then 10, 15 minutes later, you feel good again. Farzam says they just removed Drive Pass. You serious? In what city, Farzam? No trust at all. So here they are. All these novelties like Drive Pass, this and that. You know, drivers are going to have the Drive Pass. Bottom line is, they use the drivers as guinea pigs, as lab rats, right? They try and see what works for them. If they figured, are you in Orange County, Farzam? So you know 100% for sure that the Drive Pass is gone as of today. Is it as of today? Can you confirm that? Right? So people were using the Drive Pass and making additional money. They were paying for that. Uber tests it out on the drivers. Drivers get used to it. They're counting on it. Farzam, that is great feedback. Thank you. You rely on it. You become accustomed. You're doing your calculations. You can see what's coming in weekly, and then they pull the carpet. Right? And as Farzam says, no trust at all. Right here, we present you with this opportunity, and guess what? We're taking it away. It's not working for you. I mean, you know, it's working maybe for you a little bit. It's not working for the company. We retract that offer. This is how they operate every single day, right? And as Farzam correctly says, you know, no trust at all. His trust probably today was broken because he was counting on the Drive Pass, and then they pulled that carpet on him. And this is what I want people to understand, right? Don't keep that toxic relationship going and think you're at their mercy and have to always do what they have to do. You're right. You don't have to be in shackles and chains and let these companies control. You can break free. You have tons of other opportunities. If you're in California, you can go out and get your TCP for $1,200 and you can start recruiting your own clientele and putting 100% in your pocket, right? So Tris says, elevate. I love that. I love that. I love that word, elevate. A friend of mine out in Ojai used to live here in LA. He has a big entertainment company called Elevate Entertainment, Elevate Films, and all of his films about how to elevate people, how to make their lives better. A good friend of mine, Nikki Willis. Great word. Thank you for sharing. All right, guys. Covered a lot. We gave the sponsors a shout out. I had a chance to interact with all of you. Flo, much love to the familia. I'm going to go down to UPS and get your package out and throw in an extra one. Ojai is beautiful though, right, Timothy? You been there? Stunning, stunning place. I love the farmers market in Ojai. One of the main actors in The Mummy and Resident Evil, the main character is a good friend of mine. He moved from Bel Air over to Ojai, has a nice ranch out there. I used to visit him a lot. I should hit him up and go out and visit him again in Ojai. My kids used to love going out there with me and running around on the ranch, playing with the horses. He's out there. His name's Oded Fair. Maybe you guys know him. Been in tons of HBO shows. Resident Evil plays the main guy. The Mummy. Awesome guy. Awesome family. Ojai, Ojai, Ojai. Alrighty, guys. I think we're moving towards lunchtime. Laura's cooking up a storm. Maybe I get lucky there. Laura, yummy food? Not yet. Okay, maybe. She says maybe. It might be a surprise. Always yummy food. Healthy food. Cool. Alrighty. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Disinfect your cars. Wear your masks. Right? Do whatever it takes. If you're out there in your car, going shopping, put it on. Keep yourself safe. Keep your family safe. You remember, you and your family, numero uno, number one, nummer eins, nummer un. Have a great day. Enjoy. Thank you, and thank you.